Good morning on this Monday, November 8th, 2021. Let it be known, President Biden finally got a major piece of legislation through, and it's a game changer. Police continue to target Black motorists, and a new report shows just how deadly the matter is. Also, we're going to talk with two individuals who are trying to fight bigotry in sports. Coaches versus racism is what the group is called. And finally, for the first time in 11 years, or more than a decade anyway, the city of Cincinnati has a majority Black city council. We discussed that with Cincinnati Herald publisher Walter White, editor Andrea Carter. But first, let's bring on the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacy Brown. I'm broadcasting live from New Jersey this morning.
All right.
Heading back to Washington, D.C. So good to see you. I hope you had a good weekend and finally build back better.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Chavis, we're gonna, before we get to the news, we have two special guests we want to get to first.
Okay.
Before that, and right now, let's bring on Coach Byron Smith of the Prairie View A&M University Panthers, and Darryl Woods, the Coaches versus Racism Executive Director. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was just in Houston. I'm a fan of Prairie View.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Very good.
Good
morning. So listen, I know that your time is limited, so let's just jump right into this. Coaches versus racism. I'm going to start with you, Executive Director Darryl Woods. Just give our audience an overview of what Coaches versus Racism is all about. Oh, I think we lost.
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, Coaches versus Racism, basically, we are okay. Coaches versus Racism is basically, a platform that is given to us that allows us to bring awareness to some of the important issues that people care about. And what is this platform? Know that, and it's the reason it's called Coaches versus Racism, because we know coaches bring a different element to our world, and that's whether that's being mentors, leaders, role models, innovators, motivators, and what we want to try and do is, again, bring awareness to some of the social issues that have been in our system, for decades.
Well, and you have Coach Smith here from Prairie View A&M University, coach, a winning championship coach at that. Coach, what is this program? Why did you get involved? How important is it?
Just felt that, we wanted to be agents for change. Obviously, being at an HBCU, a lot of this stuff is kind of, derived from, people that look like us, African-American people and kids that being racially profiled, and a lot of brutality and things like that. So I think sports gives you a great platform to be able to spread the word, to be able to have the conversation, to continue the conversation, because you just don't want, an incident like the George Floyd situation to happen, and so many others. And it's just a moment, and that's my biggest thing. We want it to be a movement, not a moment. And we felt like getting on board and having a voice. When you do have a voice, to be able to use it, and having our platform of basketball it gets a lot of attention. So I felt that we wanted to jump on board and obviously play the game and be able to, like I say, to have a voice and to be agents for change.
Yeah, and speaking of agents for change, Dr. Chavis, I know this means a lot to you. All these years, you fighting for the same cause, really, as these. As the coach and as the director here.
Absolutely. And listen, I want you to know that the Black press supports Coaches Against Racism. I think that you're right. Our athletic stars on the field and off the stars, because of their success, because of their triumphs, they have a platform to speak out for social justice, for racial justice, for economic justice, for climate justice. There's so many justice issues that are interconnected. And so I definitely support Coaches Against Racism.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach Smith, when you talk to your players about this issue, what's the feeling? What's the feedback you get from your players and perhaps other players in the NCAA?
My players obviously are concerned, but our message is to make them aware that there are issues, there are problems. We get a wide range of kids. Obviously, we get some older kids, 21, 22 years old, a lot more in tune with what's going on in our society. But we also get some young kids, 17, 18 years old, who sometimes don't know what day of the week it is. So as a group, to make them aware of what is going on, and obviously with the area that we're in out in Prairie View, it's a pretty small area, a town more than a city. So there's a lot of police officers that are out on the street and things like that. So we talk to them about being careful, about the groups, and being in groups and riding in cars and things of that nature, not to put yourself in position to be profiled. And if something does come about with an officer, routine traffic stop, to be respectful. Always be respectful to adults, always be respectful to law enforcement. So from that end, I think the message continues each and every day. I think across the country, I think that so many young people have taken notice of what's going on, and they're speaking out. So I think the awareness is where it needs to be for our young people. And it's not just African American people. I think it's minority people. I think I've talked to some minority kids who that are not African American that have been profiled and kind of been harassed too. So I don't think it's just a black problem or an African American problem. I think it's a problem that minority people that are having to go through this. But I think the awareness is there. I think coaches are talking about it a lot more across the country now. I think they're trying to educate their players on the same thing that we do at Prairie View. So I think there's been some change. I think the conversation is strong. I think it's continuing. And I feel really good about that and just hope that it will continue.
Yeah, and you have a proud Prairie View alum watching. James Wright of the Washington Informer. He's watching. Darryl Woods, there's a big game coming up to kind of highlight coaches versus racism. Why don't you tell our viewers about that before we let you guys go?
Well, yeah, the game. Again, it's while we're together, but it's obviously more than a game. The reason being, but a game it pits University of Michigan against I like to call Coach Smith the HBCU power, because he's done a really good job with his program and his student athletes in terms of competing at a high level. But the game is Saturday, November 13th, 8 p.m. Eastern. It is broadcast. It's a nationally televised game on the Big Ten Network. And we're looking forward to everyone coming out to support the student athletes along with Coaches versus Racism, and having a good time and enjoying yourself with the game.
And where's the game being held? Are we losing?
I'm sorry. Yeah, the game is going to be held at Entertainment Sports in South.
Okay, we didn't catch all that, but Coach, perhaps you can fill us in on where the game is being played.
Washington, D.C., at Entertainment Sports Network in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. And what a great venue, what a great environment to go out and play the great game of basketball that we're all blessed to be a part of.
Yeah, and folks should know Coach Smith is a 3-time champion. They have won, was it 3 times out of the last 4 years, Coach?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Wow. Well, keep up the great work. Keep up the great work with this. We got to bring you guys back on to talk more about this. We really, really appreciate it. I know Coach is about to start the season, y'all, and he dropped in to say hello, to talk about this. So we appreciate it. Darryl Woods, the executive director of Coaches versus Racism, thank you so much for this morning. We'll get you back when your schedule permits. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Coaches versus Racism, big game coming up in Washington, D.C. On November the 13th on the Big Ten Network as well. So check it out. And Dr. Chavis, as we move on this morning, coming up shortly, Jan Michelle Kearney of the Cincinnati Herald will join us, as well as Andrea Carter and Walter White. But first, let's just quickly, the headlines, Dr. Chavis. The House passed a more than $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, sending it to President Joe Biden's desk for his signature. The legislation would put about $550 billion in new funding into transportation, broadband, and utilities. The bill passed after a last-minute scramble to reach a consensus between progressive and centrists on how to pass the infrastructure package and a larger Democratic social spending plan. President Biden is expected to sign it this week. He would have signed it Saturday, but he said he wanted to make sure that he brought all the lawmakers together so they can join in the celebration of signing it. It's the most massive infrastructure deal in decades. So it is something to celebrate. And I'm sure that the president wants to do it right, Dr. Chavis.
Absolutely. We congratulate President Biden, Vice President Harris, and all the Biden-Harris administration, the members of Congress, Nancy Pelosi, the chair, the Senate Speaker of the House, Senate Majority Leader Schumer over in the Senate side. They all work together to get this historic legislation, and it's going to benefit Black America.
Yeah, it's a lot of job creation, and not just, these are family sustaining wages jobs that this is going to create. So we do applaud the president and the 13 Republicans who joined in to get this bill passed. So congratulations on a true bipartisan effort. Dr. Chavis, also in the news this morning, minor offenses like a seat belt violation, a broken headlight, or a cracked tail light have resulted in the deaths of more than 400 people over 5 years, according to a startling new report. Many of those unarmed motorists, of course, are Black, according to the report, which was released over the weekend. Researchers conducted an extensive investigation of traffic stops in which police officers justified the shootings by arguing that the vehicle was a weapon. They found that in about 250 cases, police officers have fired into vehicles that they claim posed a threat. The researchers wrote that relative to the population, Black motorists were overrepresented among those killed. The researchers also reported, they put it in perspective, Dr. Chavis, they said that they discovered that 9 officers had been fatally run over, pinned, or dragged by drivers in vehicles over the past 5 years. Now we're talking 9 out of 400 deaths on the other side of this. And however, it also mentioned this: law enforcement officers were found to have put themselves at risk. They concluded that some officers who fatally shot motorists did not appear to be in any jeopardy at all, but yet they still shot and killed unarmed motorists. And again, the reason: a broken taillight or an air freshener in the window. This is one of the most comprehensive reports that we've seen, and you can read more about it at blackpressusa.com and many of our member papers.
It's a national story. It's a sad story. It's systemic racism. And we in the Black Press at blackpressusa.com, and Stacy, thank you for being on top of this. Now we have data to support what we already knew about racial profiling, the deadly consequences of racial profiling, the deadly consequences of the wrong people being on police forces. And this is across the United States. It's just not one region. This report shows that these fatalities, unnecessary, unmitigated police violence, police murders took place all over the United States.
Yeah, and there was only 9 incidents, and I say only because you got to think about how many hundreds of incidents in which they claim that they were in jeopardy, and only 9 incidents in which an officer actually got hurt by a vehicle. And again, keep in mind that the researchers highlighted that they put themselves in jeopardy. So it was something that they actually created. And also in the report, again, please go to blackpressusa.com, because you'll read even more about how prosecutors just blindly went along with these officers, and that is also a systemic problem, that when an officer makes a complaint, the prosecutor does absolutely no digging into that complaint but goes along with it, and that's all across the country, and that's a major problem.
Absolutely. And Stacy, we need to write a piece about prosecuting the prosecutors. Prosecutors get away with this, and they think they have immunity from prosecution, but it's beyond prosecutorial misconduct. I think this is prosecutorial aiding and abetting murdering people of color, and they need to be prosecuted for that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Dr. Chavis, I tell you what, though, the people of Cincinnati said they were fed up with their leadership, and they proved it. Cincinnati
Right.
elected a Black majority on city council and its first Asian American mayor. Cincinnati has not elected a Black majority in more than a decade. Let's talk with those on the ground in Cincinnati, our publisher out at the Cincinnati Herald, Jan-Michelle Lemon-Kearney, who's a part of that city council, as well as Andrea Carter and Walter White. I think Walter's with us as well. I'm not sure if he made it or not, but more importantly, we do have representation, big representation from the Cincinnati Herald. Congratulations, Jan-Michelle.
Thank you so much. I wanted to jump in on the previous conversation about driving while Black. A study was done in Cincinnati, and showing people driving while Black is a real thing. Black people are stopped more often, are cited more often, and also end up getting longer sentences. But I have to tell you, Cincinnati's community police relations have come a long way in the last 20 years. And
Right.
other cities need to take a look at what we've done here with the collaborative agreement that has really pushed for community policing, where the police, are not the enemy from the outside, but they're part of the community and they're involved in the community. And that's been a huge change. Also, we have the Citizens Complaint Authority, where we have an independent body to review citizens' complaints against our police. So Cincinnati has come a long way. People like Iris Rowley, I hope you'll talk to her at some point. Reverend Damon Lynch III and others have really made a change here. And so other cities need to really look at how our Cincinnati police culture has changed and continues to change. And we still got work to do, but it's gotten so much better in the last 20 years.
Let's see, that's a great report. And let's stop hiding Walter White. Where's Walter White? Walter White says he's backstage. Let's bring on Walter White as well. I don't see Walter. No Walter. Okay, well,
I can text them and just see what's going on if you want.
Well, we're reaching out to him now.
I want to salute Jean-Michelle. She's a great freedom fighter, member of the city council, but also she's the Region 3 president of the NMPA, representing all of the Black press in the Midwest of the United States. And we appreciate your leadership so much.
Thank you. We appreciate yours and all the work that Stacy does. You guys are really fantastic. I've got to tell you, this election, the Black press played a huge role in it. Having advertisements in the Black press, almost everybody who advertised in the Cincinnati Herald was elected, and that was really big. And just the articles, the ongoing information that was put out, Andrea Carter and our editor Danielle get a huge plug for that, because they did podcasts, they did print version online. I mean, they kept everybody informed. So it was really a win for the Black press.
So I'm glad you said that, Jean-Michelle, and thanks for lifting that up, because we also have done a national news article that is on the Newswire, and you can see it soon on Black Press USA and many of our papers, like the Cincinnati Herald. But an article which we talked to our publishers in places like Virginia and down in Georgia, and it seems that that's been the big problem, especially for Democrats who have not spent money with the Black press. Andrea, you can jump in on this, but those, we find that when they don't spend money by advertising in the Black press, these are the results. In Virginia, you have the big upset in Virginia. Down in Atlanta, you had Republicans advertising in the Black press more so than Democrats. Our publishers down there reported, and now you're reporting, Jan-Michelle, that they did advertise with the Cincinnati Herald, and they got the results that they desired. Andrea, can you speak to that?
Well, I can't speak to the advertising per se, but I can talk about the fact that If you don't connect with the community that you want to support with, you're not going to get the votes. And I think it was proven. I mean, in our race alone, the East Side, which much of the Black community resides in, came out in full force voting because they got to see what was going on, who was speaking out, and those who did not advertise with the paper. The West Side, which is usually a strong voting bloc, did not come out as strongly as the East Side. So there is big difference. I think there's also a change in attitude. More people are aware of what's going on politically, and more people are demanding their politicians, if you don't connect with us and with our publications, you're not going to connect with me as a voter. And I think that's what came out the most with the Cincinnati election, because first timers never win. Everyone won this time. We had a large contingent of candidates. We had 35, a record for Cincinnati. The last time we had an election, it was 25. So it was interesting to see who was in the top 9, the top 10, and who fell in the top 20. And normally those who would have gotten elected fell in the top 20. And the first timers fell in the top 10. And again, you saw them pop up in the Black press. And we had comments, they appeared on podcasts, things like that. Gwen McFarland, who was the chairman of the Board of Elections, was just on our podcast for the election coverage. And she was commenting, surprisingly, that the East Side came out in full force compared to the West Side. And again, she was very surprised at what happened because, again, usually it's flipped with the voting bloc. So it's just surprising all the way around with the Cincinnati election.
Yeah, I'm David Youngblood, who watches us often, is a big supporter of the Black press. He says we keep spending money on pursuing the mythical white vote, and then he says Democrats will continue to lose if we don't center the money on the Democratic base, which of course, the president himself declared that if it wasn't for the Black vote, he would never have won. Walter White, thanks for joining us. I see that they got your camera together. Thanks for jumping in. It's good to have this contingent from the Cincinnati Herald. We love the Herald. In fact, Dr. Chavis, our last in-person summer convention, Jan Michelle and Walter and Andrea, what a job that they did for
we
us.
enjoyed you all. Oh my goodness. 2019. I can't believe it's been that long. We're looking forward to the midwinter in person.
Absolutely.
So it'll be great to see everybody in person again. It's, the Black press is strong. And when you see all the newspapers together, all the publishers, and, we're not just newspapers anymore. We're digital, we're television, we're podcasts. Everything. It's just really encouraging and very inspiring. And you guys provide great leadership, I've got to tell you. Well,
it's region presidents and activists like yourself that really help the engine to go. That's for sure. And look, Dr. Chavis, we got Jan Michelle serving on the council there in Cincinnati. You got Jeffrey Boney serving on the council out in Missouri City, out in Texas. Both just won their races. It might be saying something here about the Black press in itself.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, the Black press is the trusted voice of the Black community, and what we're finding out now, people in communities want to elect people they can trust. They want to elect people that will not only recognize their vote, but represent their vote. And certainly Jean Michelle does it so well. Boney does it so well, in Texas also, around the country. And Walter White is on our national board now. We're so glad to have him representing both the Cincinnati Herald and the Dayton Defender. Just great work. We got to keep pushing forward and not be dissuaded. Now, even though we've had this victory in the Congress, you see the media is kind of playing it down. It's interesting when we win advances, that plays down. But when something highlights the pathology in our community or the negative in our community, that's highlighted. That's another reason why the Black press has to emphasize what are the important subject matters that we need to be focused on to improve the overall quality of life in our communities.
Yeah, there's Walter, there's a scripture that talks about even if you come last, you still get what the people who came first got. So Walter, you came in last. So let's give Walter some time here.
You know, I'm just excited to be listening to all this great information. I mean, we've come a long way in this business, and we're expanding daily. Jan mentioned about the digital and the multimedia facets of all our papers, and more importantly, I really feel strongly about what we're going to leave for the next generation. And I see NMPA and all of our papers preparing for that digital world, preparing to keep the message strong, because we all know that in America, sometimes you have to echo what you feel and what you think so that you'll be treated fairly. So right now, I think this is the best time to be a part of the NPA. And thinking about Jan and other publishers getting elected, let's just think about, in general, getting as many of our young people involved so that they can take their place on the stage, local, county, state, national, because that's what's going to keep driving us. Everything we've done in the last 100 years was because we drove, and it came through everyone. And the young people stood up last year, and now it's time for the whole contingency of our people to stand up to make sure that fairness is the theme of the day.
Yeah, and Walter said something very profound. Of course, I know Dr. Chavis has talked about this a lot, getting younger ones involved and getting prepared to pass the mantle on. So, Jan Michelle, I'm going to give you the last word on that as we wind down the time here. The importance of getting the young ones involved. I know that, again, we talked about it. Cincinnati really said enough is enough. They've changed over that city council. They made some other choices as well. What about the young ones, Jan Michelle?
It was really encouraging this time. So we have 9 seats on city council, but 35 people ran. And one of them was a 19-year-old who's really active in the NAACP. There were a lot of candidates who were in their 20s and 30s. And so it's wonderful to see that young people are charged and really energized in politics. I mean, I was encouraged. The best time about campaigning was just meeting everybody. I mean, there were some really powerful people out there, and some won, some didn't. But I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're going to stay involved in the community and probably run for office really soon. So I'm just excited about our future politically.
Yeah, and Andrea, I know that there's a lot of news there in Cincinnati. Tell us what are you guys working on right now? Because we all look for news out of that area, because there's so much going on constantly.
Well, I think what's going on is looking at what's going to be the reaction to city council the next few weeks, in next couple of months. Also looking at, we have a number of shootings that are going on around the city, taking a look at why this is occurring. And we're also looking for positive messages to let the people know that just because we have a lot of what's the epidemic, the gun violence, that's not just a local issue, but a national issue. But there's also some positiveness. So we're looking for positive stories, and we're going to be asking our readers to send us, their positive stories and also the recipes and things like that, so we can help bring in the holidays in a different way, despite, all this negative stuff that's going on. We want to be very positive. Well,
we're certainly going to be looking forward to that. And Jan Michelle, again, we mentioned the convention that we had in 2019. One of the great things was seeing Dr. Chavis and the NMPA main office staff at the baseball game, relaxing for a change, as hard as they all work. It was just great. Right.
We had a great time hosting you. 2019 was just so much fun. Lots of good information. A lot of learning went on. Also a lot of fun. So I can't wait until the Midwinter Conference.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that too, Dr. Chavis, because the Midwinter Conference is, you go to sleep tonight and wake up, it's going to be January 19th. So, Hollywood, Florida. Dr. Chavis, your close.
Yes, Midwinter Conference, January 20, actually the 19th, 18th through the 22nd. We'll be in Hollywood, Florida, and Bobby Henry is on. He's our host, local publisher of the West Side Gazette. We just had a great meeting with Terry Jones, who's chair of the Convention Planning Committee. Karen Carla Richards was just in Houston with us celebrating the 25th anniversary of Sheila Jackson Lee being a member of Congress. So we all geared up, Jan and Walter. We look forward to seeing you. And we make a way. Maybe you could also bring your editor, one of your editors with you, because we really want to talk about having a unified editorial calendar throughout the year for all the publishers. But God bless. This has been a great show, and keep that great work going on in Ohio.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
And
much.
listen, our Black fact of the day. A legend for his defense, rebounds, and shot blocking, Bill Russell was largely considered the top basketball player in NBA history for decades until Michael Jordan came onto the scene in the 1980s. As the former center for the Boston Celtics, Bill Russell helped his team win 11 NBA championships in 13 seasons. He also won 2 championships as a coach. So starting in 1966, he served as player coach for the Celtics, becoming the first Black coach in the NBA and the first to win an NBA championship. He also led the U.S. national basketball team to gold at the 1956 Olympics. So our Black fact today involves the great Bill Russell. We try to give you Black facts each and every day on Let It Be Known. And thanks for joining. Thank you to the Cincinnati Herald. Thank you to Coaches versus Racism. And of course, on behalf of Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., our president and CEO, please keep watching, and we will see you tomorrow.